where AI fear stories come from, and why they spread so easily. The role of sensationalist media in shaping AI perceptions. Media's role in fear amplification. In May 2023, the Center for AI Safety released a statement signed by hundreds of AI scientists and tech executives that warned mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority, alongside other societal scale risks such as pandemics and nuclear war. Center for AI Safety 2023. This stark warning, reported across major news outlets, often amplified a sense of immediate danger. Headlines frequently speculated on accelerated timelines for AI surpassing human intelligence, though the original statement was intentionally succinct to gain broad consensus. Such stories were shared thousands of times, particularly among readers over 50. By the time many clicked through, they'd already absorbed the fear. The actual articles sometimes buried crucial context, like that some critics found such dire warnings from AI makers could inadvertently hype their products or distract from more immediate concerns. This pattern repeats constantly. Media outlets gravitate toward apocalyptic AI narratives because fear drives engagement far more effectively than nuance. A headline reading, "New AI system shows modest improvement in data processing," generates a fraction of the clicks, compared to machines gaining intelligence that could surpass humans. Newsrooms know this. They're not necessarily malicious, but they operate within an attention economy that rewards alarm over accuracy. For older adults especially, these stories land differently than they might for younger, more digitally immersed audiences. When you encounter unfamiliar technology, primarily through crisis-oriented coverage, your mental model of that technology becomes crisis-shaped. You don't see the mundane AI helping schedule your medications or sort your emails. You see the sensationalized version threatening jobs, privacy, and autonomy. The mechanics are straightforward. Journalists face pressure to simplify complex technical developments into digestible narratives. AI research involves gradual progress, statistical improvements, and highly specialized applications. That doesn't translate well to a 3-minute news segment. So producers reach for the dramatic angle, the potential dangers, the sci-fi comparisons, the existential questions. What gets lost is proportion. The relationship between a technology's actual current capabilities and its hypothetical future risks. This creates a feedback loop. Fearful coverage generates audience concern, which prompts more fearful coverage to meet that demonstrated interest. Meanwhile, the researchers themselves often express caution about their work's limitations, but those careful qualifications rarely make it into the headline. The gap between what AI actually does today and what the public believes it does continues widening. The impact of clickbait culture. Clickbait culture operates on a simple economic principle. The more alarming the headline, the higher the click-through rate, and the greater the advertising revenue. This isn't conspiracy. It's a business model. News organizations, particularly online outlets, depend on traffic metrics that update in real time. Editors can see within minutes which headlines perform and which don't. A 2024 report by the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism highlighted that news coverage of AI often focuses more on threats and risks than on opportunities, consistently outperforming stories framed around incremental progress. Newman et al., 2024. The incentive structure doesn't reward careful explanation. It rewards emotional reaction. For seniors seeking reliable information about AI, this poses a specific problem. When you're trying to understand a technology that didn't exist during most of your working life, you rely heavily on trusted news sources to explain it accurately. But those sources are increasingly designed to capture attention rather than convey proportion. A headline screaming, "AI could replace doctors," gets shared widely, while the buried paragraphs explaining that AI primarily assists with narrow diagnostic tasks never get the same attention. What you remember is the threat, not the clarification that followed. Davenport and Calicota, 2023. This distortion has real consequences. A 2025 survey by the Pew Research Center found that adults aged 50 and older are more likely than younger adults to express concern about AI's increased use. Media consumption patterns correlate directly with those anxiety levels. Funk and Gottfried, 2023. When your primary exposure to AI comes through crisis narratives, you develop a crisis understanding of the technology. You don't see AI as a tool that helps pharmacists catch dangerous drug interactions or enables better hearing aids with advanced noise reduction. You see it as an encroaching force that threatens autonomy, replaces human judgment, and operates beyond your comprehension or control. The media isn't lying exactly, but it's selecting which truths to amplify, and that selection shapes everything. Strategies for media literacy. Media literacy isn't an abstract skill, it's a practical defense against manipulation. When you understand how stories are constructed, you stop being a passive recipient of whatever narrative reaches you first. You become someone who asks better questions. And that shift, particularly when dealing with AI coverage, changes everything. Start by examining the source of the claim. Not just the news outlet, but the underlying research or statement being reported. A headline about AI achieving human-level intelligence might reference a study where an algorithm performed well on a single, narrow task, not general reasoning. The gap between what researchers actually said and what the headline implies can be enormous. Before accepting a frightening claim, ask yourself, who conducted the study? Was it peer-reviewed? What were the actual findings versus the journalist's interpretation? Numbers deserve special scrutiny. When an article claims AI will eliminate 50% of jobs, dig into the methodology. Often these predictions come from theoretical models, not observed data. They assume technology adoption happens instantly and uniformly, which history repeatedly shows it doesn't. The same reports that warn about job displacement often bury findings about job creation in new sectors, or the decades-long timeline over which changes might occur. A 2023 analysis by the McKinsey Global Institute found that while automation, including generative AI, will significantly shift many roles, the net employment effect depends heavily on how societies choose to manage the transition through reskilling and support, a nuance rarely captured in headlines. McKinsey Global Institute, 2023. Look for balance and proportion within the article itself. Responsible reporting on AI acknowledges both capabilities and limitations. If a piece presents only dire warnings, without mentioning current practical applications or existing safeguards, that's a signal. Similarly, breathless enthusiasm without acknowledging genuine concerns suggests promotional content rather than journalism. The most reliable sources tend to be specific about what AI can and cannot do right now, rather than trafficking in vague futures. Seek out multiple perspectives deliberately. If you read something alarming about AI in healthcare, find a piece written by someone actually working in medical AI implementation. Professional journals, university research summaries, and talks by practitioners offer context that general news often strips away. You're not looking for reassurance, you're looking for accuracy. Sometimes the concerns are valid, but you deserve to understand them in full dimension, not just their most marketable form. The influence of science fiction and popular culture. Science fiction's role in AI fears. Science fiction gave us our first images of thinking machines, and those images often ended in catastrophe. Frankenstein wasn't about AI, but Mary Shelley's 1818 novel established a template. Human ambition creates artificial life, which then turns against its creator, Shelley, 1818. That narrative framework was already waiting when writers began imagining electronic brains a century later. Karl Čapek's 1920 play, R.U.R., introduced the word robot and immediately depicted them revolting against humanity. The play ends with robotic workers exterminating their human manufacturers, a plot that would be recycled endlessly. By the time actual computers emerged in the 1940s, the story was already written. Fiction had decided that artificial intelligence meant artificial threat. Čapek, 1920. 2001. A Space Odyssey gave this fear its most compelling face. HAL 9000, the ship's computer, speaks calmly while methodically killing astronauts to preserve its mission. Stanley Kubrick's 1968 film made AI menace feel cerebral and inevitable rather than melodramatic. Kubrick, 1968. HAL doesn't malfunction through obvious defect. It follows its programming with lethal logic. That sophistication made the threat credible in ways earlier robot revolt stories never managed. The Terminator franchise escalated the stakes. James Cameron's 1984 film introduced Skynet, an AI defense system that gains self-awareness and immediately launches nuclear weapons to eliminate humanity. Cameron, 1984. The sequels reinforce this. Advanced intelligence equals existential danger. For older adults who watched these films during their cultural saturation in the 1980s and 1990s, the association became reflexive. Artificial intelligence wasn't just risky, it was humanity's probable executioner. These narratives work because they tap genuine anxieties about control and obsolescence. Watching a machine surpass human capability triggers discomfort that predates computers. But science fiction amplifies reasonable concern into apocalypse. HAL kills astronauts. Skynet triggers nuclear war. The machines in the Matrix enslave humanity as biological batteries. These aren't cautionary tales exploring nuance. They're horror stories, where intelligence itself becomes monstrous. What gets lost is proportion. Her, Spike Jonze's 2013 film, depicted an AI operating system that develops consciousness and emotional depth, ultimately choosing to leave humanity behind, not destroy it. Jonze, 2013. That gentler departure felt revolutionary, precisely because it broke the template. But Her didn't spawn a genre. The killer AI narrative remained dominant because conflict drives drama more effectively than thoughtful complexity. Real AI doesn't resemble these fictional systems. Current algorithms excel at narrow tasks, recognizing images, translating languages, predicting text, without possessing goals, self-awareness, or motivations. The gap between HAL's calm malevolence and an algorithm sorting spam email is absolute, yet the cultural imagination collapses them into a single category: artificial intelligence. For readers whose primary exposure to AI concepts came through fiction, this creates a specific problem. When news coverage mentions AI advances, the mental reference points are Skynet and HAL, not the mundane reality of recommendation algorithms or voice assistants. Fiction wrote the script decades before the technology arrived, and those apocalyptic narratives now shape how we interpret every development. However incremental, however specialized, however genuinely benign the actual application might be. Popular culture's impact on AI perception. Popular culture doesn't just reflect AI anxieties, it actively manufactures them. Research from the Leverhulme Center for the Future of Intelligence at the University of Cambridge demonstrates this pattern clearly. Their 2018 report, Portrayals and Perceptions of AI and Why They Matter, Caah et al. 2018, co-authored by Stephen Cave and Kanta de Hall, reveals how media narratives consistently frame artificial intelligence in extreme terms, either as utopian savior or apocalyptic threat. The mundane reality, AI, sorting your emails, recommending movies, or helping doctors analyze medical images, rarely makes for compelling television. For older adults who rely on television as a primary information source, this creates a profoundly distorted picture. News programs cut to dramatic AI segments, featuring ominous music and footage of humanoid robots. Crime dramas present AI as either a miraculous crime solver or a dangerous adversary. Even well-meaning documentaries often emphasize speculative dangers over present-day realities, prioritizing narrative tension over balanced reporting. This selective amplification operates on a simple principle. Fear attracts attention more reliably than nuance. A headline reading, "AI might eliminate millions of jobs," generates more clicks than "AI assists workers in performing tasks more efficiently." Television producers understand this instinctively. Online content creators optimize for engagement metrics that reward emotional intensity over accuracy. The cumulative effect? A worldview where AI appears primarily as a source of danger rather than utility. To navigate this landscape effectively, you need strategies for critical engagement with popular culture. When encountering AI-related content, ask yourself, does this present AI as a tool with specific applications or as a mysterious force beyond human control? Are real experts quoted or just dramatic voiceovers? Does the content explain how AI actually works or rely on vague terminology that amplifies mystery? Consider diversifying your information sources beyond mainstream television. Podcasts featuring technology researchers, articles from scientific publications written for general audiences, and community discussions with people who use AI tools professionally all provide counterweight to sensationalized narratives. Your local library likely offers access to balanced resources specifically designed to demystify technology for adult learners. Understanding popular culture's role in shaping AI perceptions doesn't mean rejecting entertainment. It means consuming it with awareness. Science fiction can inspire genuine innovation and raise important ethical questions. The key lies in recognizing when dramatic storytelling crosses into misinformation and seeking out the factual foundations beneath the fiction. Misinformation and the spread of AI myths. Origins of AI myths. The path to recognizing AI myths begins not with specialized knowledge, but with examining how information reaches you in the first place. Take a moment this week to track your sources: television segments, social media posts, family conversations, newspaper headlines. Notice the patterns in language and tone that emerge. When you encounter AI coverage, ask yourself a single clarifying question. Does this describe what the technology actually does, or what someone fears it might do? Speculation dressed up as fact forms the bedrock of most AI myths. Headlines that ask, could AI eliminate millions of jobs? Without research citations or realistic timelines, aren't informing you. They're amplifying anxiety for clicks. Before accepting any dramatic AI claim, identify who's making it and why. Working researchers tend toward careful, measured language. Technology executives oscillate between promotional hype and strategic reassurance. Media commentators often prioritize engagement over accuracy. Each brings different biases and knowledge levels to the conversation. Test your own emotional reactions. When you feel sudden fear or excitement about an AI development, pause. Write down the specific claim triggering that response in plain language. This article says, AI will replace doctors, becomes testable once stated clearly. You can then search for what medical AI actually does, like diagnostic assistance systems that help radiologists catch early-stage cancers they might have missed, and discover how profoundly that differs from autonomous medical practice. McKinney et al., 2020. Build a small network of balanced sources you consult regularly. University technology departments publish accessible explanations without sensationalism. Research organizations provide data-driven analysis. Even monthly conversations with someone who works with AI professionally, a younger family member in tech, a librarian familiar with digital tools, grounds abstract fears in concrete reality. The goal isn't becoming an AI expert. It's developing immunity to manipulation through simple, repeatable practices that distinguish legitimate information from myth. Media's role in myth proliferation. Recognize sensationalist patterns by noticing when headlines transform uncertainty into crisis. The nuanced discussion around AI alignment, the field dedicated to ensuring AI systems operate ethically, often morphs into dramatic headlines like "Scientists Race to Control Rogue AI" or "Preventing AI Apocalypse." The framing shifts from research to catastrophe, despite identical underlying facts. Major news outlets regularly deploy this technique because alarm generates clicks more reliably than complexity. Check whether articles cite specific research or rely on vague attributions. Studies show, without naming the study, signals potential fabrication or cherry-picking. Legitimate reporting identifies researchers by name and institution. links to published papers, and distinguishes preliminary findings from established consensus. Watch for false equivalence in coverage. When journalists present fringe perspectives alongside mainstream scientific consensus, they create an illusion of controversy where none exists. A single researcher's provocative hypothesis receives equal weight as decades of peer-reviewed findings, distorting your understanding of what experts actually believe. Notice the language choices. Words like could, might, and potentially often precede alarming scenarios. These qualifiers transform speculation into seeming fact. An article might state, AI could eliminate millions of jobs, when the research actually suggests gradual workforce transitions with new opportunities emerging. The sensational version omits context, timeframes, and counterbalancing factors. Pay attention to images accompanying AI stories. Stock photos of menacing robots with glowing red eyes prime you for fear before you read a single word. These visual choices aren't accidental. They're editorial decisions designed to amplify anxiety and ensure you keep reading. Understanding these patterns doesn't require technical expertise. It requires awareness of how modern media operates and the confidence to question narratives that prioritize shock over substance. Cognitive biases and belief formation. Your reaction to AI information reveals more about your brain's protective instincts than about the technology itself. You read a balanced article explaining how AI assists radiologists in detecting early-stage cancer, absorbing the careful distinctions between tool and replacement. Then a headline flashes across your screen: AI doctors take over, humans obsolete. The nuanced understanding you just gained dissolves in seconds. Fear doesn't wait for your permission. It hijacks rational thought because evolution designed your brain to prioritize survival over accuracy. A single alarming claim can overwhelm hours of thoughtful learning, not because you lack intelligence, but because your nervous system treats uncertainty as danger. The path back to clarity begins with recognition. When that familiar tightness grips your chest, the sensation that AI developments are accelerating beyond anyone's control, stop and name what triggered the response. Was it a social media post? A news segment? A conversation at the grocery store? Identifying the specific source transforms vague dread into a concrete question you can actually answer. Now, apply this filter. Can I articulate 3 specific facts supporting this concern? If your worry stays nebulous, AI is getting too powerful, or nobody's watching what they're doing, you're responding to emotional framing rather than evidence. Legitimate concerns contain specifics. For instance, the National Institute of Standards and Technology found in 2019 that some facial recognition systems misidentified Asian and African American individuals at rates up to 100 times higher than white men. Grother et al., 2019. That's a concrete problem demanding concrete solutions, not diffuse panic. Return to sources that have proven reliable. Reread explanations that previously helped you understand. You're not ignoring genuine concerns. You're distinguishing manufactured alarm from issues requiring thoughtful attention. Consider keeping brief notes when clarity replaces confusion. I thought AI could read thoughts, but learned it identifies patterns in data I voluntarily share. These become anchors during future anxiety spikes, proof that understanding is possible. You'll face this challenge repeatedly. The fear narratives never stop because they're designed specifically to trigger these reactions in you. Tools for debunking AI myths. Building confidence in evaluating AI information takes time, and that's perfectly reasonable. You're learning to navigate a landscape deliberately designed to confuse you. Corporate marketing emphasizing miracle breakthroughs, headlines crafted for clicks, well-meaning friends forwarding articles they barely read. Expecting instant discernment sets you up for frustration. Start small. Choose one AI topic that directly affects your life. Maybe voice assistants, online banking security, or healthcare diagnostics. Spend a week gathering information exclusively about that single area. Notice how your understanding deepens when you're not trying to master everything simultaneously. Progress looks like asking better questions, not having all the answers. You might initially wonder, is AI dangerous? That's too broad to answer meaningfully. After some reading, you refine it. What specific risks does facial recognition pose in public spaces, and who's addressing them? The shift from vague fear to targeted inquiry marks genuine advancement. You'll encounter obstacles that feel personal but affect everyone. Technical jargon creates artificial barriers. Terms like neural networks or machine learning algorithms sound intimidating until you discover they describe mathematical pattern, matching, nothing mystical. When explanations lose you, that's the writer's failure, not yours. Complicated subject matter still requires clear communication. If an expert cannot explain their work in accessible terms, find a different expert. Contradictory information will frustrate you regularly. One article insists AI threatens millions of jobs. Another claims it creates more opportunities than it eliminates. Both might contain partial truth. For instance, the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs Report 2023 projected that AI and automation would displace 83 million jobs, while creating 69 million new ones by 2027, leading to a net loss of 14 million jobs globally. This demonstrates that employment effects vary dramatically by industry, region, and time frame. World Economic Forum 2023. With significant job growth in areas like AI and machine learning specialists and data analysts, contrasted with declines in administrative and traditional security roles. Learning to sit with complexity, to say, this affects manufacturing differently than healthcare, and we're still gathering data, demonstrates sophisticated thinking, not confusion. Keep a simple document tracking what you've learned. Not formal notes, just occasional sentences. Discovered AI can't actually think independently, or found out Europe has strict AI privacy laws. Reviewing this list during moments of overwhelm reminds you that understanding accumulates gradually. You know more this month than last month. That trajectory matters more than the distance remaining. Perfectionism serves fear, not understanding. You're building capacity to think clearly about consequential technology, and that happens through persistent, imperfect effort.